Okay, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a massive, kind of hidden environmental challenge brewing right now in rural Haryana, and the absolutely brilliant, low-cost tech hack that actually solved it. We're going to see how mixing some basic government data with the exact same technology you use on your phone every single day managed to completely organize waste management for an entire state.
Section 1. The Hidden Sanitation Challenge. To really grasp the sheer scale of this issue, you've got to wrap your head around this number. 2,687,780. That is how many rural households exist in Haryana. Now, the Swachh Bharat mission's first phase was an absolute triumph in getting toilets built and establishing open defecation-free status. But it inadvertently created a ticking time bomb. Underneath all those households, millions of toilet pits are rapidly filling up with fecal sludge.
What's really alarming here is the breakdown of the technology they're using. 42% of these homes use single leach pits, and another 26% use septic tanks. So if you do the math, that means nearly 70% of all these rural households rely on systems that are inevitably going to require regular mechanical desludging once they fill up. And that leads us straight into this invisible crisis. You see, retrofitting these existing toilets to safer twin pits is incredibly difficult. We're talking about densely built rural areas with narrow streets and really limited plot sizes. Because of this, private desludging operators step in to pump the waste. But since they're working in a completely informal market, they often just take this raw, hazardous sludge and dump it wherever they can. Out in open fields, depressions, right in your homes, or even straight into water drains. It is a massive public health and environmental risk.
Section 2. Why rural needs urban.
This brings us to the absolute core of what we're talking about today. Rural sanitation desperately requires urban co-treatment to survive. They just can't solve this in isolation. Think about it. If rural departments try to build entirely new treatment plants from scratch, they hit a massive wall. It requires land they don't have, immense time, and incredibly heavy funding. Meanwhile, just down the road, Haryana has over 120 existing urban sewage treatment plants, and a feasibility study showed these urban plants are actually underutilized. They have spare capacity just sitting there ready to go right now.
So the policy-backed answer here is co-treatment. It's a brilliant synergy. Basically, rural fecal sludge is transported and safely processed right alongside domestic sewage inside these existing urban plants, using approved designs and dilution methods. It's the perfect example of rural and urban convergence. And the cost difference? It's a total game changer. Instead of spending multi-crores building entirely new rural plants, modifying an existing urban STP to add a co-treatment unit only costs about 9 to 10 lakh rupees. Supported by government financial guidelines, it's just an incredibly practical and impactful option.
Section 3. The Logistical Mapping Nightmare.
So, having a cheap solution is fantastic, right? But here is where we hit another massive wall. How do you logically and affordably connect roughly 6,000 scattered rural villages to 123 specific urban plants? Traditional manual GIS mapping is, well, actually, let's just call it what it is, a total nightmare for rural departments. It requires expensive software, specialized consultants, and months of grueling labor. And the worst part? It usually relies on straight-line distances. But obviously, heavy sludge trucks don't fly like birds, they drive on roads. A village might be 5 kilometers away in a straight line, but 20 kilometers away by actual drivable roads because there's a river or a major highway in the way.
Section 4. A clever data hack. To break this complete logjam, planners came up with an elegantly simple workflow. First, they extracted existing village coordinates from government asset databases, using those as a proxy for the center of the village. Second, they grabbed the plant coordinates from the urban departments. Third, they fed those origin and destination pairs straight into the Google Distance Matrix API. And finally, they were able to accurately cluster those 6,000 villages to their nearest feasible treatment plant based on actual road distance and plant capacity.
Think of this exactly like opening up Uber or a food delivery app. It calculates the actual fastest road route and travel time to your house, right? By using this API, planners generated a massive distance matrix of actual drivable roads, entirely bypassing those heavily flawed straight-line estimates from the past.
The efficiency here is honestly staggering. This spreadsheet-friendly data hack allowed just 2 planners to accurately map the fecal sludge routes for the entire state of Haryana, and they did it in just 1 week. No expensive GIS software needed. They essentially turned months of highly technical, consultant-driven work into a simple 1-week exercise.
Section 5. Distance-based fair pricing.
Now, figuring out the exact driving distances didn't just solve the logistics, it entirely fixed the predatory economics of the informal desludging market. Because the government finally knew the exact driving distance from every single village to its assigned plant, they could establish fair, standardized tariff bands. Villages within 10 kilometers pay a fixed fee of 500 to 1,000 rupees. Medium-distance villages between 10 and 25 kilometers pay a base fee plus a per-kilometer charge. And anything over 25 kilometers gets flagged for special arrangements or future plant construction. This totally protects rural households from being overcharged while making sure the private operators still make a viable living.
Section 6. Scaling the solution.
The absolute best part of this whole explainer, this isn't just a one-off win for Haryana. It's a blueprint for the entire country. Today, hundreds of private operators are safely routed to designated plants. Millions of liters of hazardous sludge are being treated instead of dumped in our fields. And crucially, because this whole thing relies on simple data sets, basic spreadsheets, and accessible APIs, any state in India can replicate this right now to bridge that critical gap between rural waste and urban treatment.
I really want to leave you with this thought today. If a handful of basic data tools can solve a statewide sanitation crisis and map 6,000 villages to urban plants in just 1 week, what other massive logistical hurdles in our society are just waiting for a clever data hack? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep asking those big questions, and I'll catch you next time.